Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining us. This is the May 25th, 2017 meeting of the East Fishkill Town Board. Would you please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Just a couple quick announcements tonight. I'd like to thank Councilman D'Alessandro and Councilman Franco for their Hometown Heroes program. It was really nicely done. Our American Legion post and Boy Scout Troop 86 were just here. They did a wonderful presentation of the heroes that will be recognized, and I think it's going to be an ongoing project, so we look forward to more heroes coming forward. So very nice presentation. Also, one other thing, Hillside Lake had a vote Saturday night on the dissolution of the Special Park District, and it passed. And I think it was 183-3, something like that. So with the passing of the vote to dissolve the Special Park District, the town has now 6 months to put together a plan to establish a dissolution plan. So we'll be working on that. Excuse me. And that's all the announcements for tonight. Madam Clerk, will you call the roll?
Councilperson Cassidy.
Present.
Councilperson D'Alessandro.
Present.
Councilperson Franco.
Present.
Councilperson Marinaro.
Present.
Supervisor Hickman.
Present. Thank you, Madam Clerk. The board's been provided minutes of the April 27, 2017 meeting. Madam Clerk, have you received any modifications, alterations, or additions?
No, I have not.
That being said, do I have a motion by the board to approve the April 27, 2017 minutes as presented?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. We have nothing tonight under receipt and file. Public comments on agenda items. Is there anybody in the audience who'd like to speak on any agenda items?
Good evening. I'd like to speak on resolution number 1 regarding the acceptance of the MS4 annual report. And I'd like to address what was a lengthy exchange in the May 11th town workshop meeting. And this, too, will be rather lengthy also. Mr. Hickman starts out in the meeting in an exchange with the MS4 consultant, Walter Ardis. He wants to mention the MS4 annual report. I know that one piece of the complaints discussed what we call is a 303D impaired water body, which is something that's been brought to our attention quite often, so I asked Walter to do a bit more research so I could understand what a 303D impaired water body is. And in this year's report, we have a list of 303D water bodies, and I took a look at it, and Hillside Lake is noted as to being a 303D impaired water body. When I look at it, I see there's probably a list of 25 of them here, and they give us suspected source for Hillside Lake. Suspect the quality in the report. It says suspected cause pollutant phosphorus is numerous, is throughout the report for most of these, but under Hillside Lake, it's as phosphorus as the cause pollutant, and its suspected source, it says on-site wastewater treatment systems. So they identified, I think also DEC has identified that there may be a problem with septic systems out there in Hillside Lake, and that's part of the reason that was probably the reason. It's a 303D impaired water body list and was put on the list in 2002, so I asked Walter to do a little research into that, and I appreciate that kind of clarifies things. I think Hillside Lake does have a lot of issues, and I do believe, as this DEC report seems to bear out, that on-site septic system failures who are maybe not failures from not operating as well as they should, could be part of the problem with it, with Hillside Lake phosphorus. And so I'd like for the general public and Mr. Hickman to understand that phosphorus is not only caused as a result of washing machines and soap and maybe toilet bowls flushing and things of that sort. Phosphorus moves in a cycle through rocks, water, soil, and sediments and organisms. The key steps to the phosphorus cycle over time, rain and weathering cause rocks to release phosphate ions and other minerals. This inorganic phosphate is then distributed in soils and water. Plants take up inorganic phosphate from the soil. The plants may then be consumed by animals. Once in the plant or animal, the phosphate is incorporated into organic molecules such as DNA. When the plant or animal dies, it decays, and the organic phosphate is returned to the soil. Within the soil, organic forms of phosphate can be made available to plants by bacteria that break down organic matter into inorganic forms of phosphorus. This process is known as mineralization. Phosphorus in soil can end up in waterways and eventually oceans. Once there, it can be incorporated into sediments over time. So in other words, as decaying plants break down, it creates a phosphorus, which then is silical in the vegetation, potentially within Hillside Lake. In July of 1988, a preliminary study done by Morris Associates for the town of East Fishkill regarding Hillside Lake Park District. Under water quality, it says, the sampling results for both Hillside Lake and beachfront water did not indicate the presence of any coliform bacteria. This would appear to indicate that Hillside Lake is presently not being significantly affected by any potential direct or indirect discharge of wastewater. However, non-coliform bacteria was detected in all of the samples analyzed, indicating that bacteria not associated with the disposal of wastewater is present in the lake. And then it goes on and says, in general, there's steps that can be taken to maintain adequate water. And I have the test results here, and of the 4 samples taken, 2 at the beachfront and 2 within Hillside Lake, they are all non-coliform. There's another engineering report. There's no claim to its production. It was once on the East Fishkill website, page 469 of 944 pages. And it says rehabilitation of Hillside Lake, and it's from engineering. And under lake characteristics, it says Hillside Lake Rehabilitation Long-Term Aquatic Vegetation Management Plan. And under lake characteristics, it says the lake is a New York State DEC classified water body. It has a mean water depth of 2 to 3 feet and a maximum water depth of 4 feet. A 6 to 8 foot layer of accreted organic material covers the lake bottom. And then under water quality in the same report, it says the single most important parameter relevant to invasive plant growth and other plants is phosphorus. It goes on and says potential sources of phosphorus are decaying vegetation, animal waste, fertilizers, detergents, and failing septic systems. So while I don't deny that there may be a contribution to the vegetation and phosphorus in Hillside Lake, potentially could be some septic system. Phosphorus is not solely from septic systems. Dye tests have been done by Dutchess County Department of Health in Hillside Lake. Inconclusive. There was no evidence of any failing septic systems in the perimeter of Hillside Lake. Infrared photography was done, as you well know. It was inconclusive. There was no evidence of any leaching septic systems with the infrared photography.
I don't think that's true. I think there was at least one that had been, and then it was repaired, so.
We make him,
Could you
make
speak
his
in the
com-
microphone? I
Let him
couldn't
make
hear.
his
Actually,
comments.
If you would let me please go on, thank you. Excuse me. In that exchange regarding, the only mention is on-site septic systems, WTS, I think is the, for private septic systems. Every 2 years on a regional rotational basis, New York State DEC allows for public comment for New York State 303D impaired water bodies. For cycle year 2016, public comment regarding Hillside Lake was to request that urban stormwater runoff be placed back on the list as a known source. New York State DEC responded, urban stormwater runoff is included on a suspected source, as a suspected source in the water body inventory priority water bodies list, AKA WI/PWL, fact sheet for Hillside Lake. And I have that priority list right here. That, in fact, I believe was used as attachments, Mr. Hickman, that you signed off on for a grant request. And that was the 2016 New York State Section 303D list for impaired water bodies. That was response to public comment. In that exchange between the supervisor and Mr. Artis stated, I am in receipt of email from Mr. DiMasso. That is untrue. I have never sent him an email regarding this particular exchange, and I have a copy of that email here. All of you were in receipt, or at least were sent that email. And then he said he would like to I would like to put public comments into this year's MS4 annual report. Mr. Hickman dramatically breaks in, interrupting. That was the one complaint. That was the one complaint. Not once, but twice, like there was some urgency to interject like I'm sort of a villain or something. Mr. Artis accurately stated prior to Mr. Hickman's outburst that the email was forwarded to him. Excuse me, that's an error on my reading there. Mr. Artis accurately stated that I requested to put it in public comment. And then for a third time, Mr. Hickman interjects, so I was going to ask you if that complaint could be put in, would that be put in this year? Mr. Artis replies, the protocol is to be in writing in next year's. And when did this year end? This was like a dog and pony show. It looked very rehearsed. Mr. Artis replied March 9th. So if March 9th is the end of the year, how does anybody comment on a report that wasn't made available by March 9th, that wasn't made available until the last week in April? That I'd really like to know what kind of magic is involved in that. Then as the meeting goes on, Councilman Marinaro inquires about outfalls around the lake. They usually collect more water and more sediment. He goes on, I was wondering if we could ask the highway superintendent to look at a couple of those to see if they need to be cleaned out. And he says, mistakenly, in my opinion, I know that that's not a requirement, but it is in fact a requirement. Mr. Hickman replies, the outfalls or the basins, Manny says, yeah, both of them. And Mr. Hickman replies, the outfalls are way out in the lake. Well, if they're way out in the lake, that's your job to go clean them up way out in the lake. because there is documentation that states and this is from New York State DEC, Pat Ferricane, I'm sure you're familiar with his name, and it says, attached are the photos of the complaint investigation at Hillside Lake, and it says, sediment deposition was noted at the storm drain outfalls to the lake. This deposition should be removed as a normal part of storm drain system maintenance. We have not suggested that you clean the entire lake, but he did indicate that the outfalls should be cleaned. And if they're way out in the lake, I encourage you to go get them. Mr. Hickman goes on with the highway superintendent is with us tonight. Mr. McClellan replied, I'm sorry, we do the lake 2 times a year now. Mr. Hickman, so do 2 times, we do them 2 times already, so you think it's going to happen on a regular schedule? Mr. McClellan says the requirement is once every 5 years, so Mr. Hickman says, so we're on top of it. And so, Mr. Hickman, perhaps you didn't share the letter that was sent to you by New York State DEC. It's dated March 21st, 2016, from an inspection that was done on, I believe it was February 11th. And I presume that you're in receipt of it, but I have it here anyway. And it very specifically says, catch basins located in priority areas, in other words, in parentheses, 303D listed water, Hillside Lake, are maintained yearly. It is recommended that the catch basins in the priority area be cleaned more frequently. The frequency of the catch basins and the maintenance in Hillside Lake area needs to be included in the stormwater maintenance plan. And the copy of the maintenance plan should be submitted to this department. And it goes on to say, please address the deficiencies listed above and submit a response to this department no later than April 30, 2016, if you have any questions, and a phone number. And as of a correspondence between myself and New York State DEC in October of 2016, they were yet in receipt of that response from you.
Who signed the letter, if I may ask?
You may ask. Aparna Roy.
Okay, thank you.
Great Eastern Ecology, in their report, it mentions, let's see, this is from 2008, GEE, that's Great Eastern Ecology, observed areas where surface water runoff from the roadside was flowing towards the lake and deposition of significant amounts of sediment in these areas indicates that direct runoff and sediment inflow into the lake is occurring. I also have a resolution from the Town of East Fishkill Town Board minutes on February 24th, 2011. And the resolution is requesting proposals for consultants with respect to Hillside Lake. And it says, whereas the town board has previously received various engineering studies and reports with respect to the issues surrounding Hillside Lake, whereas meetings have been held with the residents of Hillside Lake to discuss the various options available, and whereas it is obvious from these engineering studies that an issue to be addressed is the stormwater discharge from town highway into said lake and sedimentation, any sedimentation that may have been caused or being caused thereby, and it is the desire of the town board to retain consultant to study this and make recommendations both to clean up and future prevention if necessary. I believe since 2011, ongoing, we are now in the future, and the future is still ahead of us, and I think there needs to be something done regarding sediment flowing into Hillside Lake. Now that the town engineer be hereby authorized to prepare requests for proposals with respect to obtaining a study of the town's stormwater systems into Hillside Lake and evaluate both the prior impacts and future issues to be resolved. And it was all voted in favor. Motion carried. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you. The only comment I have to say is I did not write the DC report. That was the listing, which was a 303D listing. I simply read it, and I do believe that the emails that were received from Mr. Damaso on that day were forwarded to our MS4 consultant, Walter Artis. I believe that's how he came into be in possession of that email, so. All righty. Anybody, any other
If I
public
may, that
comments?
email
Any other
also had,
public? I thought you were done, sir, I'm sorry.
since you mentioned the email, I wanted to include, that email had 22 pictures of 3 storm events within the last year of heavy sediment flow into Hillside Lake. And when I asked the MS4 Stormwater Management Officer if there were any reports written on 2 of my complaints from 3 of those, he didn't know what I was talking about. That's called illicit discharge. Thank you.
My only comment to that was and as I asked Walter when we first met that night, we had some severe rainstorms, severe rainstorms run off roads, yards, fields, forests, and everything. They run to low areas. They always tend to run towards gravity, makes them run to a low water body. Typically, they run to areas that are lower. And I did discuss this with Walter at that meeting and previously prior to that. And I guess sheet discharge or flow over water bodies, over lawns, forests, and things of that nature was not coming, was coming off the roads, off the yards, and things of that. And I don't know how you would quantify that kind of illicit discharge, but Walter and I will discuss that further. Thank you. Any other public comments on agenda items?
Bill Green, Rec Director. Very briefly, the seasonal hires that are being authorized for tonight, we now do have enough lifeguards for Red Wing, which opens this weekend, so I highly recommend them. And also, I gave John a note. We had one applicant for a peddler for Red Wing. He was down today with me, and he saw that the concession is available, and he would just as well, even though it's late, do the concession as opposed to the truck. He's got a good recommendation, and he's been in the business for a while, so when it comes down on the agenda, I recommend that we go that way since we're opening in 2 days.
Yep, and just to clarify, that he was actually going to get a peddler's permit.
Right.
But when he saw the concession, he actually increased it to what the bid was. Nobody bid on it this year. So
Yeah,
if the
what it
board
was
is
last year.
okay, he'd rather situate in there.
And if he gets the okay, he'll start preparing tomorrow.
Okay, very
John?
good.
Thank you.
He's going to bid $500. I think in the initial bid, which was way back in February, it was $1,000, but Bill has allowed.
Was that 1,000 for?
It was 500 last year
Last
because
year.
Right, because nobody bid.
Okay.
He
If the
didn't-
board's okay with a $500 bid then, otherwise we're not going to have anybody running at the concession down there, so.
And just, we still did not receive any bids at all for the soccer complex this year,
Okay.
so. okay,
All
thank
righty,
you.
great. Thank you, Bill. Any other comments on agenda items?
Good evening. On the same topic that Keith was on, I'd be very interested to hear Walter Artis, being he's here, comment on Keith's presentation up here.
Walter's not here to comment tonight. Walter is
I-
just here for the resolution for the signing, so.
Oh, you speak
We
for
can have him
Walter?
back another time to have a
You
discussion.
speak for Walter? You won't ask him if he's...
Yes, I'm speaking for Walter.
Really?
Yes, I am.
Hey, Walter. Wow.
Excuse me, sir, address the
Okay.
board, please.
Well, the reason why I asked that is because I saw that Walter Artis had posted a comment on a Poughkeepsie Journal article about Hillside Lake, claiming that they were wrong when actually he was wrong. So, but I do find it very interesting that you control Walter Artis, and he can't even
I
make his
control
own
this
decision.
meeting, sir. This is
Oh,
my
so
meeting. I
you're
run the
not
meeting.
allowing
I
him.
would like to ask you, though,
You're not
what were
allowing
the
him?
questions you would like to ask, Walter? Because I don't think it's right just to come up and ask questions. I think the gentleman should be prepared if you're going to ask him a question. What are the questions? If you would, I'd like to write them down.
Just presented the whole thing.
The questions, well, that was rather lengthy. Would you like
Okay,
to
but is he
shorten it,
gonna
or would
come
you
up
like to
here
be a
and
little
answer
more?
them? 'Cause I don't wanna
Would you
waste
like to
my
be a little
time
more
If
specific?
you will not allow him to come up here and answer.
Walter's not speaking tonight, sir.
Okay. Wow, Walter.
If you'd like to submit the questions, I'd be more than happy to submit them, forward them to Walter.
I can't help but laugh. You're a good puppeteer.
No, I'm not a puppeteer,
Oh,
sir.
well, that's
But
what I
anyway.
said. But anyway,
if you'd
anyhow. So,
Please proceed.
I would like to, on one of the agenda items, you brought up the Hillside Lake Park District.
But that was not an agenda item, sir, so that is not an agenda item.
Comments, yeah. Agenda's right on the top. If you could please pass on,
No, I'm sorry, sir, that was under supervisor's comments.
which is right under agenda.
This is for agenda items listed under agenda, resolutions, sir. You'd like to bring this up at a
And right
later
here
time?
it says, this is the
Excuse me?
agenda. This is the agenda.
And where was it printed that I was
Says
going to bring up?
public comments
Excuse me?
on agenda items.
Sir, would you please
And-
take a seat until it's the
Excuse me,
proper time?
Stop talking over me, please. Excuse me, I'm
Excuse me?
trying to explain. In the past,
Yes.
people, including myself,
Yes,
have been able to come up here and
Okay.
comment on
I
things
will-
because
I
you,
will-
excuse me, you're speaking over me again, because you made a supervisor's comment,
Mm-hmm.
which falls under the title of agenda, and you said, well, I guess that does fall under the title of agenda, and you allowed people to speak. So why am I not allowed to speak in that same situation?
corrected, sir, I will allow you to speak,
Thank you very much.
certainly.
The first thing I would like to say on behalf of the Hillside Lake Park District, if I may, and maybe I'll just say it on behalf of myself. I would like to thank Carol Hooray for her tireless and very professional input to our voting setup. I think she did that very professionally, handled everything very well, was very communicative, very transparent, and I applaud her for that. Now, you had mentioned that now that the dissolution vote has passed, you have 180 days to come up with a plan. If I read correctly, and you can consult with Mr. Wood on this, well, within 30 days after the vote is certified, which I believe was certified on Monday, the town council must meet to discuss the proposed dissolution plan. Do you have a date yet for that?
Tom, is that correct?
I think we talked about the June workshop
We're
meeting.
going to do that, yeah.
Right.
So in the June workshop? Okay. Now, I also believe that that discussion is supposed to include the people from the voting, the people from the district that voted on it.
No, it says the
No, I don't
governing
think so.
body,
Governing body is town board.
so that's the town board.
That's
Okay.
why it'd be appropriate for a workshop.
Okay. Additionally, and I could pull it up and quote you directly, you've been speaking to a lot of newspapers, I see, lately, and giving some vague information there, and in one of them, and I'm not going to say I'm quoting you directly, if we need it, I can pull it up on my phone, you stated that you have 6 months to come up with, the board has 6 months to come up with a plan, and then it's up to the entire town to decide whether we go forward with that
That's
plan.
incorrect.
That is incorrect.
That is incorrect.
Okay. They quoted you directly as
They
that.
sometimes do it incorrectly.
I just want to go for the record. I just want to make sure everybody understands that this will be, that plan will be voted on by the town board and the same people that voted.
Well, it depends on what the
eligible.
plan, what the dissolution plan entails.
Okay. Okay. Because there have been a lot of questions about that, where people had read that. Now, further on that topic, you commented, and again, I'll paraphrase, that You don't know if the decision will be, if the lake and the common lands will be owned by the town, or will they be given back to the property owners?
That is true.
Can you explain what you meant by that?
I think it's pretty clear by what you just said. Will it become town property, or will it go back to the property owners?
Okay, let's start with number one. Currently, it is town property,
It's held by the town on behalf of the property owners.
the same as this building.
Excuse me?
This building is owned on
No,
behalf,
the property is held by the town on behalf of the Hillside Lake property owners.
the documents I gave you, I'd like to put larger versions up for the public to see. Mm-hmm. And these are, you can see, the same exact things you have there. This is a confidential memo from 1989 when the Park District was being established. These are 3 excerpts from the deed showing that the town owns the property.
On behalf.
It does not say that, it says town owns property. So please let me finish. And then these are 2 screenshots from parcel access showing owner name, primary owner, town of East Fishkill, no secondary owner. These here are from 3, I didn't want to put the whole deed and print out giant things, I took 3 important pieces of it. Each 3 of them say the grantor, when the lake was taken over, was the Hillside Lake Property Owners Association, which does not exist anymore. The grantee, town of East Fishkill. All 3 of those pieces are from the deed, the actual deed where you purchased it for $10. Okay? The last statement over here is one from Lisa Rubenstein, who I believe was the attorney at the time, to the town board, talking about the dissolution and the summary and who has to do what in order to get this accomplished, just to make sure everybody, all the Ts are crossed and the Is are dotted. And I highlighted on it, a role of the town board. The map plan and report should be revised to clarify the relationship between the town board and the park district. If the park district is created, the property will be conveyed to the town, and the town board will be responsible for the operation of the district. Now, I'm assuming you all know the definition of convey. Everybody up here knows the legal definition of convey. And, not that I'm saying you guys don't, but if there's anyone listening.
Excuse me 1 minute, since I think I'm the only licensed
think you're-
attorney in the room.
Excuse me.
I'd like to just,
If the chairman
with the
would ask me to
supervisor,
speak,
let-
Excuse me,
absolutely.
would
May
you
I?
just
Thank you.
explain this, if you would?
just so you know, there's one corporation, Town of East Fishkill. So all property that the town board owns or administers on behalf of various entities within the town are owned by the town. Just like the Sagamore Sewer District, the Fishkill Plains Water District, the Four Corners Sewer and Water System, the Hopewell Hamlet Sewer Plant. If you look at those deeds, it will show up the same in land records.
Just like this building.
Yeah, this building is owned by the general. Now, if you go into municipal law, you'll understand that this real property that's used for the general town purposes is a town-wide expense, and it's in the town-wide budget. But when the town board owns property on behalf of a district, that's exactly what it is, on behalf of that district. And only the residents of that district can be charged with the expenses, the costs of it, or the benefits of it, not the town-wide taxpayers. So I understand it's a complicated area, and you see a deed, the deed's recorded, and that's the end of it, but there's a chain of title behind that deed that isn't affected. There may be, and I don't know
I have to
what,
stop you right there.
I don't
because
know what
I've
the,
already checked with the town clerk, there is not.
no, the town clerk doesn't maintain the chain of title records.
Would maintain that.
No, they wouldn't. They're all land records controlling title to property in New York State is recorded in the office of the county clerk.
I requested
Okay.
from the town clerk any documentation that can show.
The town clerk
something
doesn't have
excuse
it.
me, something pertaining to the town owning this property on behalf of. There is no such documentation, I was told.
That's true. There's no document. It's in the law. It's the opinion of the state controller.
There has to be a legal documentation, or it doesn't
No,
apply.
it doesn't. This is the way
What is it?
municipalities
Just
work.
Somebody remembers it and
It's in the law.
No, it's the law. It's the way towns operate throughout the state. It's not just East Fishkill. But I think we're jumping the gun because the town board has to go through a process, as you have already pointed out, and that dissolution plan has to be created. So one option the supervisor mentioned is it would become townwide. Another might be that it'll look at a reversion back to the property owners. There could be a third or fourth until they go through that process. I think we're a little premature talking about what's going to be the dissolution plan.
Okay. Mr. Supervisor, may I clarify something with Tom Wood?
Very
Or I
good.
can ask you and you can clarify it with him, whatever you prefer.
I asked Tom Wood if you would clarify that, so.
May I ask Tom Wood to
What
clarify?
would you like to ask?
I would like to ask
You can
Mr.
address
Wood-
the board.
I would like to ask you to ask, or I can ask him, ask Mr. Wood to clarify how exactly one takes a 400 and some odd $1,000 lake and gives it back to approximately 900 property owners. Do they each get 1/900th of it, and they're told they have to pay taxes on it?
This will be part of the
That's the
process.
question I would like the attorney to
No,
ask.
no,
if
we
you
will
would,
look
please.
at this through the process and answer these
But
questions.
that's avoiding the question I'm
But the
asking.
the corporation-
And that is something that you said in a Poughkeepsie Journal article. So I would like to
I said, no, it
clarify
may revert
how
back-
that process happens.
Excuse me?
You,
I said that it may go back to the property owners, or it may go to the town. I would like to see, if it goes to the town, we'd have a general townwide vote on it, because there would be some bonding involved. So, and that's the two options I told the Poughkeepsie Journal. After they called me many, many times. I don't know how they got my number, but they called me many, many times on that.
if it goes back to the town, it's not a decision of East Fishkill. Again, we just discussed this before. The vote for the final
Oh,
proposed plan is by the people of Hillside Lake and the town board.
No, the
Not
vote
necessarily.
that just occurred was to have the town board work out a dissolution plan.
Correct?
And then that dissolution plan, when it is in a form the town board's satisfied with, within the 6-month period, then goes before the public for a public hearing.
The public as in Hillside
Correct.
Lake. We just
And then-
discussed that, and it was confirmed.
No, it goes for a public hearing
Public.
before the board.
Public, anybody.
Then the town board takes a vote, and they either adopt that plan or they don't adopt it.
And the vote is by the people of Hillside Lake.
Well, the initial vote is by the town board.
Town board, yes.
And then if
But
there's
then
another petition,
when it's
then
voted-
it would go to referendum again.
When it's voted by the people.
But there may be options that the town board may, as they discuss the dissolution plan, which may trigger other provisions of town law that may require a vote of the whole town. We don't know what that plan's going to be.
Okay.
So a generic statement that it may require a vote of the people of the town is plausible.
For the record, I'd still like to hand in these documents, which are duplicates of that there. In any case, no matter how you look at it, Town of East Fishkill owns the property.
I'm not.
On behalf of the
Tag
property
on
owners.
behalf, but the Town of East Fishkill owns the property.
On behalf of the property owners, sir.
On behalf, but again,
Of the
I will
property
stand my
owners.
ground.
Just as we own the
Respect your legal
Sagamore
input.
sewer plant and,
Respect your legal input, but the Town of East Fishkill owns the property. You paid for it, actually. It's
On
right
behalf.
there.
On
Everything's
behalf.
right there. And if I could ask the videographer to please zoom in on each one of those so the people at home can see these legal documents, and we can clarify this at a later time. You said you're going to discuss it at a workshop meeting. That means there is no comment allowed from,
well, there's a
the
public
residents of the
hearing
town.
there's a public hearing once they have a draft plan.
okay. So you have 30 days to discuss it, so you said you'll do that at the next workshop meeting. You have 180 days to come up with a plan. And that plan has to be approved by the Park District, but it's still the Park District. Now, am I correct that the Park District is not officially dissolved until that plan is approved?
Well,
voted on?
one part of the plan, if you look in the statute, is the date that it would be dissolved. So that's something that, depending upon what the plan is, would determine the date of it. It would also be, they have to do an analysis of any funding issues. You know, I know there's no debt, but
There
things
could
like
be.
that. So that might have to coincide with mid-year or whatever. So all of those, that has to be decided.
Okay, I'm just curious because that 180 days is going to overlap an election. So, and we know that Mr.
Well,
Hickman is not running, so he'll kick the can down to the next person.
Well, I think you...
Excuse me,
but
excuse
but
me.
think
I
you-
don't think the timing is really an issue. We have 6 months to put the plan together.
It
So you're
could
thinking
be,
you'll get it done sooner?
We will see how it goes. Okay?
and I just want to clarify something, unless I misunderstand what you're saying. If the plan is approved by the town board or disapproved, it doesn't automatically go to a vote. Okay, there's no second referendum vote. unless there's the petition.
We can repetition you for.
Correct, right.
And
right.
there's always Article 78.
Yeah,
Want to go that way.
absolutely.
I also have 7 or 8 other documents here backing up where it says that the property, all the property must be conveyed to the town in order for it to become a park district. These are resolutions, these are confidential legal memos from the attorneys at the time. This is Morris Associates, this is Town of East Fishkill heading. All of these things outline clearly the property has to be conveyed to the Town of East Fishkill.
I don't think anyone disputes that.
Yeah.
The
We have
title to
them.
the deed is in the name of the Town of East Fishkill. As I explained, it's the corporation Town of East Fishkill, and that holds title to all property, whether it's townwide or special districts property throughout the town.
And as well, nowhere in these documents are the words "on behalf of" used,
Right,
or anything even remotely like that,
right.
Understood.
okay? All right. And I wanted to emphasize something else for the people that do not live in the Hillside Lake Park District. I was up here once before and I emphasized this, that the maintenance fees for the park district are currently approximately $1,500. And that if you break that down, that comes out to .0038 cents per thousand of assessed value. In other words, a $1 million property in this town, if the town was to take on the maintenance of Hillside Lake, would see a 39-cent per year increase in their property taxes. I just wanted to make that perfectly clear. And if anybody in this town owns a $1 million property and does not want to pay that 39 cents, they have a problem paying that, meet me at any town board meeting and I'll give you a couple of bucks to cover a few years. That was all on that topic. Thank you.
Anybody else like to speak on agenda items only? Okay, there being none, we open up the public hearing for tonight. This is a public hearing on expansion or establishment, as you will, of the Route 52 water and sewer. This is for the water, for the Route 52 water improvement area. Thank you, Nick. Do I have a motion to open the public hearing?
So moved.
And do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Public hearing is now open. Anybody on the board have any questions about this? We discussed this at the workshop. This really is an administrative issue at this point. We're not putting any pipe in the ground. We do need to move forward and establish create a water improvement area. So we'll be talking with Dutchess County and Global Foundries about the water contract. Without water improvement area, it's really no point. So I'd like to create this evening if we could, and it's going to really encompass the IBM East, the IBM West, and I believe, Scott, did we have John Jay in that, or no?
John Jay is not in that.
Is not in
Basically,
that.
these are the areas that can benefit from the assignment of water.
Right. So it's going to be basically the East and West complex. John Jay, we're looking at separately, so. That being said, does the board have any questions about the establishment of this water improvement area for former IBM campuses?
Yeah, I have a question. So, the allotment, the agreed, Dutchess County Water and Wastewater Authority agrees with Global Foundries that they could give us up to 500,000 gallons a day, right?
Correct.
So if we can't exceed that,
Oh, yes, we can. What we're going to do, and just let me clarify this, we have an agreement with Global Foundries where they'll cover the take or pay
Okay.
on 500,000 gallons. Actually, a group that may be moving into the West Complex has requested 200,000 gallons of that for their development going forward, and we've agreed to let that happen. In the event that we need more water than the 500,000 gallons, I'm sure Dutchess County would sell it to us, but we'd have to take a pay provision with that, anything over.
okay, so my question then goes to storage. Right now, they have a 1 million gallon storage tank there, right?
They're assigning to us 500,000 to coincide with the assignment of 500,000.
Okay, so if they're using 500,000, we're using 500,000, say we max out. Now, there's a 1 million gallon tank there.
There's a 2 million gallon tank.
Oh, 2 million,
We're
okay.
getting 500 to coincide with the 500,000 gallon assignment. If we were to exceed the 500,000 gallon assignment, our options are either to negotiate and buy some more storage from Global Foundries.
Or build our own.
Possibly buy storage from the county, or build our own.
Okay, and in those scenarios, if we have to build our own or we need more storage, the people who will be in the district will assume that cost?
Correct.
Okay. That's about it.
Any
Thank
other
you.
questions on the establishment of the water improvement area? Anybody in the public like to ask comment on the establishment of the water improvement area at former IBM campuses? There being none, do I have a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Public hearing is now closed. Do I have a motion to adopt the negative declaration, which actually describes this as a type 2 action of no environmental consequence? And, well, do I have a motion to adopt the negative declaration?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carried. And do I have a motion to adopt the law to establish this water improvement area?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you very much.
Don, are we going to have a law?
What's that?
Are we going to have a law?
Well, I mean, I'm sorry, it says here adopt law, and this was,
It's an order, you're on.
It's an order?
in order.
The other ones we've done.
Okay.
If you would correct that, I would appreciate it.
What was that again? I'm sorry?
It's not a law, this is it was an order to establish the water improvement area. Okay. The first resolution on the agenda is to accept the MS4 annual report, whereas the town has prepared the 2016 annual report with respect to the MS4 permit and requirements of New York State DEC. Whereas said report has been made available to the public, and therefore be resolved, the town does hereby authorize the town supervisor to sign and file the 2016 MS4 report as prepared by consultant Walter Artis with New York State DEC in accordance with the law. Do I have a motion to authorize the signing of this MS4 report?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you very much. Walter, would you like to bring it up? I can do the signature thing for you right now. And that way you can get in the mail. Okay, very good. Okay, you want, what's the date today?
25th.
25th? Wow.
Tom.
Okay, thank you, Walter.
When it says over there in the resolution in accordance with the law, that's the requirement to deliver the papers. Is that correct?
Right, that's all, just the bond.
All right, number 2 on the agenda, authorize refunding bond resolution. As we did last year, bond counsel has contacted us and said that we can get lower rates on the bonds that we have outstanding. There would be no change to the bonds, to the term or anything. The only thing it would be that there would be a lower interest rate with the bonds that we have out there already. We already have the resolution prepared for us by bond counsel. And if there's no problem, I'd like to authorize the refunding bond resolution that's before us. Do I have a motion to authorize refunding bond resolution?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? There being none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you very much. With this bond refinancing, and with one we did last year, we should save approximately $2 million over 20 years in interest, so we appreciate that. Councilman D'Alessandro, would you read resolution number 3, please?
to refer a rezoning application to the Town Planning Board and Dutchess County Planning. Whereas Leonard Stanley has filed an application requesting a rezone of property grid number 6556-002-93362 from B1 to R1, and upon filing of the petition with the town clerk and payment of the requisite fees, the matter is now before the town board, and the town board has determined that it is appropriate to refer this matter to the Town Planning Board and Dutchess County Planning to review. And it is the desire of the town board to make said referral. Now therefore be it resolved that the rezoning application from Leonard Stanley filed with the town clerk being hereby is referred to the Town Planning Board and Dutchess County Planning for their review and comment. Be it further resolved that the town clerk being hereby is authorized and directed to refer said petition to Planning Board and Dutchess County Planning.
Thank you, Councilman. Do I have a motion to refer this rezone application to the planning board and, as per the resolution, also Dutchess County Planning?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Councilman Franco, you feel like doing the
Seasonal
next
hires,
resolution?
sure. Authorize the hiring of seasonal recreation staff. Whereas the town board has previously authorized the hiring of lifeguards, and whereas the recreation director needs to fill additional lifeguard positions, and is requesting Eric Bredhauer, Nayara Sullivan, Brooke Sadowitz, and Amanda Yen to be hired. And the director is also requesting the town board to authorize the hiring of Jim Lynch as the tennis director to be hired at $25 an hour, Ali Fisher as the golf director, and Frank Mateo as the basketball director to be hired at $2,200 for their summer season. And whereas the recreation director is requesting the town board to approve Jim Lynch as the tennis director to be hired at $25 an hour, and Ali Fisher as the golf director to be hired at $25 an hour. Whereas the recreation director is also requesting the town board to authorize the part-time gate attendants for Red Wing Park, Barbara Levin to be paid $14 an hour, Lauren Chiaccio to be paid $13 an hour, and Faith Nobles to be paid $11 an hour. Now therefore be it resolved that the recreation director be and hereby is authorized to hire Eric Bretthauer at $10 an hour, and Nayara Sullivan, Brooke Sadowitz, and Amanda Yen at $9.75 an hour as lifeguards. Now therefore be it resolved that the recreation director be and hereby is authorized to hire Jim Lynch as the tennis director to be hired at $25 an hour, Ali Fisher as the golf director to be hired at $25 an hour, and Frank Mateo as basketball director to be hired at $2,200 for the summer season. Now therefore be it resolved that the rec director be and hereby is authorized to hire Barbara Levin to be paid $14 an hour, Lauren Chiaccio to be paid $13 an hour, and Faith Nobles to be paid $11 an hour as part-time gate attendants for Red Wing Park. Now therefore be it resolved that it may be necessary for the recreation director to hire additional lifeguards and will notify the town board of such hiring. And be it further resolved that all said employment shall be seasonal employment, and that upon completion of their task, they shall be removed from the payroll.
Thank you, Councilman. I think next year we're going to try to shorten up this resolution. And I think it would be a little bit better if Recreation could just send us a whole list of them, and we could say as per attached. So we'll leave it at that. Do I have a motion to authorize the hiring of the seasonal recreation staff?
So moved.
Do I have a second? Second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. No opposed. Motion carried. Thank you very much.
I think Tom wrote that.
No.
No, I didn't.
No, Gina did.
Oh, that,
No,
Yeah, certainly not this one.
We're declaring certain property to be surplus, whereas our two printers do not work. Desire of the town board to authorize the disposal of said property. Therefore, be resolved that said property is determined to be surplus by town board. Supervisor being hereby is authorized to approve the disposal of the non-working printers. Do I have a motion to authorize printer disposal?
So moved.
Do I have a second? Second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Didn't give you a chance to say no, but. Authorize funding for certain project from Recreational Development Fund. And this, I'd just like a little explanation. We're looking for additional grants for Julie's Jungle, but we would like to I think we'll provide $67,000 for the completion of the second phase of Julie's Jungle for children of all abilities. The rec board is in favor of this. Hopefully, we get more grants coming in. This won't be necessary, but we'd like to have this to make sure we can complete the project. We have blacktop designated areas at Red Wing Park, and this is Councilman Franco and Councilman D'Alessandro. This is your A Day at the Beach for children of all abilities, too. Blacktop designated for areas at Red Wing, picnic benches at Red Wing Park, accessible playground equipment for Red Wing Park. Items 2, 3, and 4 not to exceed $16,000. So basically, we have a resolution before us to approve the $67,000 for the completion of Julie's Jungle and for the items for the Day at the Beach, not to exceed $16,000. So, do I have a motion to approve the funding from the Rec Development Fund for these projects?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you very much. Authorized change of status, whereas town operates Channel 20 as a municipal channel on the Cablevision system, and our operator, Michael Miner, has been the operator for some time. It is the desire of the town board to change the status of the media technician, Michael Miner, from part-time to contractual. Now, therefore, be resolved that the supervisor being hereby is authorized to maintain the services of MJM Television to be the operator of the municipal channel, and be it further resolved that the contracted amount will not exceed the budgeted amount. Do I have a motion to authorize this change of status?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you.
Just for clarification.
Sure.
It's going to cost us the same or less, and nothing's going to change. We're still going to
Nothing.
get the same quality and
Yep.
quantity?
And
Absolutely.
we get great, both of that, quantity and quality. Michael does a great job. Pleasure to
Very
work with
good.
him.
Councilman Marinero, would you read the next resolution, please?
Authorize the Sons of Italy fireworks, whereas the Sons of Italy conduct their annual event to provide entertainment and fireworks for the community, and whereas the town has traditionally allowed them to use of the Opal Recreation Fields for this purpose, and whereas the Sons of Italy is requesting the town board approve the fireworks display for Sunday, May 28, 2017, and now therefore be it resolved that the Sons of Italy may have fireworks on May 28, 2017. And now therefore be it resolved that May 29, 2017 will be used for the fireworks in the event they lose a day due to inclement weather. And be it further resolved that the town police, town recreation department, and all other agencies of the town are authorized to direct and directed to allow the use of the Opal Recreation Fields by the Sons of Italy for fireworks display. And be it further resolved that this consent is subject to the receipt of a certificate of insurance from the Sons of Italy, indemning the town for any liability arising out of their use of the fields.
Thank you, Councilman. Do I have a motion to authorize the town property for the Sons of Italy fireworks?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you.
Carol, you got the paperwork?
Yes,
Because they're using it right now.
yes, we do have a certificate of insurance, yes, we do.
Next resolution is to appoint maintenance worker, Councilman Cassidy. Would you read that resolution, please?
Whereas the Recreation Director has requested Charles Cables to be hired as a part-time maintenance worker for the town, and whereas the town board has interviewed Charles Cables, and now therefore be resolved that the town board has approved Charles Cables to be hired as the maintenance worker for the town, and be it further resolved that said employment shall be part-time and paid $18.03 per hour.
Thank you, Councilman. Do I have a motion to appoint Charles Cables as our maintenance worker?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
John, I have a question about this.
Absolutely.
I am all in favor of hiring this person. I think it's needed. The only thing that I have an issue with is where the money's coming from.
Okay.
I'd rather see that the money be taken out of recreation. Actually, not recreation, but highway funds.
It's a little odd, certainly, because it's a person that's going to be working, not even on the fields, but mainly on the buildings maintenance. So that was kind of an odd situation. I have no problem if you want to come out of another budget line, I'm
Well,
not sure.
this gentleman, I
Yeah.
think he's going to be doing additional work,
He will be locking.
as we know,
Yeah, yeah.
or closing the field, so it
Yeah.
is that kind of a duty. I rather don't prefer that money come out of the highway
At recreation.
recreation, yes.
What does the board think? I mean, I have no problem with it wherever it comes out of.
Where'd it come out of before? Mark?
Well, building maintenance was generally handled from the Buildings and Grounds line, A7140. I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah, no, I think that answers
This-
the question.
Right now, it's due to come out of the same line as George, this
Are we looking- we're
is George. This is George we're replacing, correct?
Sure, you could look at it as a
Basically.
replacement for George.
No, we're going to take it out of contingency, because we had money in contingency, but I have no problem if it has to come out of the other line, I have no problem with that, if that's where it came from.
Is that money still there? I don't care. where it
I
comes
don't
out- I
know.
don't care where it comes out of.
Well,
replacing
technically,
George.
I mean,
I
don't want-
technically contingency money is for different things. This, again, is as a gentleman that is going to be working for those duties that we're taking care of. I think we already have budgeted money for that from last year. So I'd rather see that money come out of there rather than contingency.
Well, the highway superintendent is with us tonight, would you like to, any comments on that?
But excuse me. I don't think, at this point,
Well, it is
we are
his budget.
voting on the matter. The board is voting on the matter. I don't think that we need the intervention of the highway superintendent
I think
regarding
it's,
this vote.
oh, I think it's
think it's
okay to
quite
ask his
irregular.
opinion on his budget.
I think it's quite irregular what we're doing right now. This is a board decision.
Well, I
It's
don't
a
think I've ever
financial
seen
thing.
so much to do about such a small amount because it's coming out of one budget line or another.
Okay, but it's something
So-
that it's been budgeted for already. And I'd rather see that money come out of that. We're talking about a small amount of money, rather than come out of contingency.
What's the board's pleasure? I mean, this is kind of ridiculous. I don't really mind. If it comes out of contingency, I think the thought was, being as we're not quite halfway through the year, we want to make sure we had enough money left in the recreation budget. If we take it out of the recreation budget and the recreation budget ends up short towards the end of the year, we'll take out a contingency anyway. So it really doesn't matter to me.
It's all the same,
What's-
right?
It's going to be the same.
May I ask one question?
Yes.
Who does he work for?
He's going to work for buildings, he's just going to be doing buildings, Jan McHugh.
He doesn't work for highway, he doesn't work for parks, he works for a recreation director?
Yes, he will.
Or the supervisor?
Yes,
Thank you.
okay. So, doesn't matter to me, I'm just a little bit, whatever you guys want to do.
When I saw the job description and the duties that this gentleman is doing, okay, we had a gentleman that was doing this before. I mean, it's not a matter of being opinionated about this. We're talking about a small amount of money,
Yeah.
okay? And we're shifting a cost. I think that the proper thing to do is for this salary to come out of whatever we paid the gentleman prior to this. Mr. Cassidy asked, is this gentleman replacing George? I believe George before was paid under a different budget item. So, again, what is the money for contingency supposed to be, Comptroller?
For any unforeseen events that happen or expenditures that happen in the year, it can be used for anything it's at your discretion to fill in budget gaps.
Okay, now that being said, let's discuss a little bit about previous recreation, because yes, it was George, and there's been, the recreation under highway now does the fields, and they do all that matter. The buildings has always been kind of an odd situation. I have no problem if it comes out of the highway, out of the recreation budget, as long as the board is very understanding that if they run short in the highway budget, it's going to come out of contingency anyway.
But we'll worry
That's
about when
fine,
the
if
time,
that's okay.
we'll worry about when the time comes.
No, I
But
worry
is there
about it-
money, is there money right now for this, in that
In both
budget?
budgets, there's money,
Mark?
correct?
Yeah, I mean, we're only halfway through the year, so.
No
change-
problem. Board want to take, which budget? I really don't care. I mean, it's
It's
up to the
fine,
board.
take it from the recreation.
Yeah, that'd
If
be
we
fine.
have to go into contingency, we go into contingency.
Exactly. So we'll take it out of the recreation budget, okay?
Thank you.
Everybody happy?
Thank you.
Thank you. And we just understand that if we run short, we're going to come out of contingency anyway.
John, do we have 5 ayes then?
What's that?
Do we have 5 ayes?
Make a motion to vote.
I haven't done it
He
yet.
has a motion and a second.
All in favor?
All in
say
favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, motion carried. Thank you, Carol. My goodness. All right. Let's talk about the peddler for Red Wing Park. Bill explained it. Do you guys want to vote on it? We're going to actually award Randolph Baker the bid to operate out of the concession there.
Yeah, so it's going to be a bid, it's not going to be a peddler's permit.
Correct. Going to amend that, please amend that resolution. Do I have a motion authorizing this gentleman to put in a $500 bid to run the concessions out of Red Wing Park, because we have not had any bids on that this year?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion on this matter? There being none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Let Bill Green know in the morning, we got to get the concession cleaned up. I do have one from the floor. We've discussed previously. Do I have a motion to authorize retirement agreement with our police captain?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. We will notify the captain. All right, budget transfers this evening. Mark, would you like to explain the budget transfers?
Sure, we have 3. The first one is just to allow for the resolution you did changing Michael Minor's status from an employee to a subcontractor. The second one is to authorize the purchase of handicap accessible mats and to rent a handicap bathroom for a day at the beach. That's $6,000 for the mats and $2,000 for the rental, for a total of $8,000, and that would be coming from the contingency line. And the third one is for the building maintenance employee. We would change that bottom line for a total of $10,000 to be transferred from a 7140.1. I have listed a 1990.4. So from contingency, $10,000 to the salary line of building maintenance, and then the fringe benefit lines associated with that, Social Security, Medicare lines, workers' comp, and disability.
Okay. Thank you, Mark. Any questions on the budget transfers as presented?
So we can't, we can't use rec development funds for the mats?
No.
No. They're not a capital improvement.
Oh,
Mark, what was the number again? A7?
That we're moving the monies from A 7140.1, which is the,
Thank you.
Do I have a motion to authorize the budget transfers as proposed?
So moved?
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
I,
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Time in the agenda to take public comments on general town issues. Anybody in the audience would like to speak on general town issues? We're now taking public comments on general town issues. Just a little intro. Comments will be taken. Some issues take time for review, consideration, and research. Responses from the board may be given at this time, they may not. They may be given at another meeting. The public always has the ability to come meet with any member of the town board to discuss any town issues. Please address the board. Thank you.
Good evening. First of all, I'd like to, my name is Felicia Walker from Worley Homes, and I'd like to extend my appreciation for putting together the preliminary steps to address our water problems at Worley Homes. Really appreciate it. It looks like there's going to be some forward movement before I turn 102, so very happy about that. Just have a few questions to see where we are in terms of where we're going, you know, and certainly ask about what we would do if we should be able, you know, if you'd be able to secure a grant. So
Well, I think, number one, as far as the grants, the time, that we don't have time for for this round of the water grants from New York State.
Right,
There's
I
too
think-
much information that they require. I think the next grant round is round 3, which we're going to be preparing to apply for next June.
Right, I watched the workshop meeting, and that was touched
Yeah,
upon.
we'll
at
be doing that.
meeting.
We've been discussing the condition of your system with Dutchess County Department of Health, and we'll probably be meeting with them again on this issue because there's a lot of issues with your system, and we have to come to an agreement about what the town can do and when the town can do it. And we've also had on and off discussions with the owners about the acquisition. So,
Right, I understand that there was a hearing with, between the Department of Health, Dutchess County Department
It's
of Health.
my understanding, yes.
The 18th of this month, and Hopewell Services Corp. And I think, my understanding is that Hopewell Services is looking for, they really are interested in hoping to have the town take over the water system, because it's just becoming a nightmare for them, obviously. And I believe they're looking for something in 3 months to see where that's going to wind up. Again, I'm not sure.
I'm sorry, what was that?
3 months was something that was mentioned by Hopewell Services as a time period, because there are some issues that they're not in compliance with. And that's what the health department is looking at that point, and you've kind of answered that question. My other comment would be is, and again, I'd watched the workshop meeting, was mention of getting the grant, and there are 2 ways to use that grant money should it be, should you be able to get it. And I certainly appreciate the difficulty in obtaining grants. They are hard to get, and the criteria is very difficult. Certainly in terms of being time sensitive, excuse me. And the question was, should the money from the grant be used to reduce the debt on the bond, or to be used for piping? I think that was,
Well, I don't think we have enough money to do the whole project anyway. I don't think that's going to be able to offset the debt, because we don't have enough to replace the distribution system as we would like. That's kind of the problem. We'd like to do much more pipe, but we don't have enough money.
right, and I understand that. And I think one of the things that we're looking at, and that's certainly a big consideration, is that because we are the direct beneficiaries, and we have to be responsible for it, no other tax dollars, outside tax dollars, have to be done. So
Right.
the homeowners are, have to bear the responsibility.
Yeah.
And the thinking, or at least our thinking in trying to find grant money, was to reduce that cost to the homeowners. And, you say, this is the homeowner's responsibility. We recognize that, and we've discussed at length about how that's going to be for some of the homeowners, somewhat of a difficulty in terms of managing dollars, et cetera. But there's also another consideration, and fortunately, we're not facing it this moment, but those are dollars that are not going to no longer be in the local economy, okay? Those dollars are going to be used to be paid and service the debt. So not only are we talking about the money that's going to go to the homeowners in Worley Homes, but that's also dollars that's going to be leaving the local economy.
But you have to pay for your water.
We understand that, but what I'm talking about is the grant. I'm not talking about the bond. We understand, there's no free ride here.
And there's no free money. A grant is really all taxpayers' money anyway.
Exactly, but we're looking to get that taxpayer money back here to help reduce that debt. We know that. Every dollar that's a tax dollar, if you say the state will pay for it, or the federal government will pay for it, or somebody else, or Mickey Mouse will pay for it, it's all taxpayer money, okay? However it comes in, and I understand that. But if there's a grant, and I think it was the WIIA.
There's a WIIA grant.
Yeah, that's the grant, that can offset the cost by 60%. And if that's a possibility, to reduce the debt service to the homeowners, as well as keep those dollars in the local economy, that makes sense to me, okay? If that's a possibility. And we can still manage to get the project that Scott had put together, at least the overall, it's not firm yet, but, the proposal we got at the March 30th meeting.
Right, well, the cost is.
The cost
The
is.
amount of work that we're going to be able to do fluctuates, but the cost is pretty much fixed.
Exactly, and maybe there's a cost saving, I don't know, but I understand that. again, looking at that grant money, should it be secured, that it be secured to reduce the debt service and the pressure on the homeowners and keep the dollars in the local economy. So that people can get that other slice of pizza or do those projects and, you know, continue to use the local businesses here. That's all I'm asking, okay? I understand
You
the
started by
pipes.
saying you understand how difficult it is to get a grant.
Absolutely, I know exactly how difficult it is to get a grant.
Okay.
Okay,
And we understand your concerns.
okay? So, again, I appreciate the effort, and are we still looking, is the timeline still approximately 2017 in terms of acquisition?
If it happens, we have a lot of obstacles to overcome. We still have to come to an agreement with the Department of Health. We still have to come to an agreement with the owners of the system. So, you know, we're not into a contract by any means, so we're still shooting for that.
Well,
But
I
there's
know-
still obstacles.
Right, I know, there's been obstacles, and there's not going to be any magic fairy dust or anything else. I mean,
No.
I certainly understand that there are obstacles, but what can I say?
We're still shooting for that timeline.
We're still shooting for that timeline. Okay, I certainly appreciate the effort. Sometimes I feel like we're a New York City project. Thank you.
Okay, thank
Supervisor,
you.
can I just clarify a couple things?
Sure, if you
I
would,
could, please?
absolutely.
So the W-2A grant, okay?
The WIA
as far
grant,
as
yeah.
it referred to. The deadline, I think, is beginning of June or something like that. June 23rd. And to qualify for that grant, we have to own the system, we have to have formed the district, we will have had to approve a bond resolution to do the improvements, so there's a lot of things that have to fall into place. Right, so, but I just want for everybody listening, while we can't now, but potentially we could make round 4 a year from now if we own the system. But understand one thing, to get there, everyone's going to have to sign on to, or a majority has to sign on to that $950-some figure, okay, with no guarantee that you're going to get the grant, okay, with no guarantee. So the scenario is a year from now, we do qualify for that grant. Now, the grant has a lot of conditions. It has to be for eligible expenses, which they'll determine. We haven't made application yet, so we don't know exactly, what that is. So there's 2 scenarios. One scenario is we could potentially reduce the debt, okay? But just bear in mind, under that scenario, our scope of work is framed by a debt service and trying to keep that annual figure at about $950 a year, okay? That's not our wish list project. I mean, ideally, we replace the whole system, okay? It's all undersized, doesn't meet town code, but, again, there's an expense associated with that. So a decision has to be made. Either if we get those additional monies, do we replace the whole system in its entirety and we're done, we don't have to worry about pressures at low points and high points, et cetera, or do we lower the debt to find out that we
There's
have
a problem down the road.
Some people just don't have the pressure. We're trying to manage it so we don't blow the old pipes out of the ground, which we talked about previously. So I appreciate trying to keep the rate low, but I mean, if we can get grant money, I think a hard look has to be taken at replacing the entire system while the opportunity presents itself.
Well, I appreciate that, but I go back to my statement here. We're the ones that have to bear the cost.
And it's your water, yeah.
And it's a water, and I know that.
Would you please go back up to the microphone if you're going to continue?
I didn't know this.
Well, I didn't know we were
I'm
going to
sorry,
continue.
Scott.
I thought we were done anyway.
I thought we were done, that's what I was
No, but I just wanted to, clear and give you a little insight and,
Right, no,
hopefully.
I know that there's no way to meet this fiscal year, either state
And maybe
or
it's a
federal.
compromise at the end of the day. Maybe it's a combination of more pipe and reducing it a little bit.
We'd have to
We'll
look
see
at
how
it.
it shakes out when we make that application.
Right, and I understand that this may be again, it's projected as a 5-year phasing of this particular grant, maybe around for 5 years. I don't know, nothing is set in stone, so it's pretty fluid right now. And again, and I do understand, and I do appreciate that, and I'm sure that everyone sitting up there appreciates our position as well.
Okay, thank you.
Well, to piggyback that conversation about how hard it is to get grants, I have emailed the town board and asked them and did not receive a reply. about an explanation as to why, because of the May 20th vote, our town supervisor has said that we have to postpone construction for the grant that we received to create the natural filtration system for Hillside Lake, and why he's also said he would notify the potential grant to clear the lily pads for $128,000, that may be postponed as well. And I haven't gotten an
But we-
explanation as
As I
to,
explained at the workshop, that I'd gotten an email from DASNY, that's the Dormitory Authority of New York State, who supplies the capital for these projects, just requesting on town letterhead from the town attorney or an official saying that the town owns the property where the lily harvesting is going to happen. And we can't really do that until we finish with this project, with this dissolution project. So we told them about it, we sent them a letter, and that we have to wait to see what happens with the dissolution now. Same thing in the DEC letter, in the DEC grant for the stormwater filter. There's a clause in there, it's called significant occurrences, and if there's any significant occurrences that could impact the project, you're supposed to notify DEC. So I've been speaking with DEC upon the vote and the pending dissolution of the district. And they all agree, this is new territory, and it needs to be, we need to see where this is all going to end up.
well, the town does own the lake. The town's name is on the deed.
The
I
town's
know.
name's on the deed.
So I don't understand why the goal of this project, which I'm sure the reasons why we receive these grants, which is to filter the stormwater so that an impaired water body does not become even more impaired. I don't understand why the people who granted the money would want to not carry out that project, whether
It all depends on the dissolution.
the fact is, whoever owns the lake is still going to be an impaired water body, and the goal of these projects is to fix that. I don't understand how the ownership, which really hasn't changed because of the vote, the town's name is still on the deed. I don't understand why that should affect carrying out these projects, one of which was supposed to start on June 1st. And I also wonder if there's a deadline for the completion of that project in order for us to get the grant, and if this is going to jeopardize that project ever happening.
Yeah, it certainly made it a lot more complicated. DEC has indicated that they didn't think if things work out correctly, they would have no problem extending the deadline by 2 years for that grant. So I feel pretty confident with the DEC grant. As far as the Dormitory Authority grant, I really can't say we haven't gotten any response from them since. So we'll have to see.
Well, I would just hope that because the lake is in the town of East Fishkill and will always be in the town of East Fishkill, and the town of East Fishkill has already admitted that the unfiltered stormwater that has been put into that lake has been part of the cause for the lake to become an impaired water body and filled with sediment, that the town would encourage those grants to be
We have
obtained
done
and
all we could.
also for the projects to be completed as planned.
Absolutely, we've done all we can.
Because it seems like the town is trying to somehow make those not be completed.
It's a legal matter from the agencies that are providing us the funds.
Okay. Well, I'd also like to say that Hillside Lake is, whether it's owned by the town or eventually owned by someone else, which I don't see how that would happen, because I don't think a deed can be forced upon people without them agreeing to own a deed. I mean, I don't see, as I think Michael mentioned, that the town can just decide through referendum or whatever that a deed can just change and be forced upon people who are not 100% responsible for the demise of the lake. I don't think it would be fair, I don't think it would be moral, and I don't think it would be legal. It is not the choice of Hillside Lake residents to put unfiltered stormwater into our lake to fill it up. It was not our choice to allow other neighborhoods like Marie Court to put their stormwater into our lake and fill it up. And for the developers to not have to pay 1 penny in order to do that. That was not our choice.
Does Marie put into that, Scott?
We've
No.
been down that road.
Yeah, we've been down the road. No, they don't go, they go the other way. They have their own retention pond at the bottom of the hill
Well, I
there.
believe that in several meetings, it was agreed
Yeah.
that other neighborhoods besides
We've looked at
Hillside
that,
Lake,
so-
stormwater,
We would say we,
right? There's 2 other neighborhoods, it's been established, whose stormwater goes into the lake, and they did not pay any money in order to do that. So our property values have dropped, houses have been abandoned, many on the lake, and whoever owns it, right now it's the town, it's an asset. And I believe in other meetings, it's also been mentioned that in order to divert the stormwater from those other neighborhoods somewhere else would cost, I believe it was said, millions of dollars? Well, a lot of money, at any rate, to divert that stormwater somewhere else. So that would be money the town would have to spend with no benefit other than pipes going in a different direction. If Hillside Lake is improved and does not become a wetland or a ballpark or whatever people have mentioned it becoming, our houses would be worth more, we would be paying more property taxes, there would be a benefit to the town. So I just hope that people in East Fishkill realize that we don't have that many lakes. This lake feeds into the Fishkill watershed and eventually feeds into the Hudson River. It's an environmental issue that this be cleaned up, and it would create more property taxes if this lake is cleaned up. And as Michael mentioned, it would not be a huge cost to other taxpayers for this problem to be resolved. And it is an asset to our town. It used to be a swimmable, beautiful lake. There's a lot of wildlife that live on the lake. And as I say, it feeds into other water bodies that I'm sure people who care about the environment want to not pollute with unfiltered stormwater. There's a bald eagle that lives in my neighbor's tree that feeds in the lake. There are endless species of birds I've seen on the lake. It's not too many towns have a 26-acre lake, and I hope that the town realizes that this is an important environmental asset and issue, and it's not just a matter of dollars and cents. It's a matter of wildlife and property values, and it's the right thing to do.
thank you. Anybody else in the audience like to speak on general town issues?
I have to apologize in advance if this was clarified for me, but maybe I missed it. So I wanted to ask it again. On the topic of giving the lake back to the property owners, as you know, quite a large portion of the current property owners were not property owners in Hillside Lake when this park district was established. So once again, I would like to know how you go about, and this is one of the things I asked for you to ask the town attorney. What is the how do you go about giving a 26-acre lake back to 900 or so property owners?
We'll be
And
looking
it's
into
not a
that.
homeowners association.
We'll be looking into that as part of the resolution to dissolve the park district.
So you're saying you don't
We'll
know
look
if
into
that's
it.
possible?
Well, I believe it's possible, but I'm not sure about the mechanics, and we'll look into it to get the
Right.
mechanics, get the details for you.
Can we ask the town attorney
Excuse me?
how that goes about, how that
We'll
happens?
be discussing that. We'll get back to you on a later date,
Why can't we discuss it now?
because we'll be getting back to you on a later date. I said in the beginning that we may not be answering all your questions. We may be getting back to you at a later date, which we shall.
Okay, and on that, getting back to a later date, I would like to make a suggestion and take it or leave it. I don't know if the public would be behind it or not, but you have comments from the town board as last thing on the agenda. And that leaves you the ability to throw out comments and say things without anyone else being able to counter voice that. So perhaps you might consider putting town board comments before the comments from the community.
Okay.
Therefore, the meeting can end with
Comments?
nothing open-ended.
Comments taken.
People would be able to then question what you said in your, anything that anybody said in their town board comments.
Okay,
It
understood.
would be very transparent of you.
Understood.
So I'm still not clear, though, on this, how you're going to give a property to 900 people, force it upon them, and tell them to tax it. And I don't understand why you were able to tell a newspaper that that might be one of the things you'll do when you don't even know if it's possible to do
Oh, I
that.
believe it's absolutely, I believe it's possible. I just don't know the mechanics of it, and you ask very detailed questions, and I wouldn't want
don't need a very
to, and I wouldn't
detailed-
want to respond to you without having the correct
All right,
answer.
so what goes through your head when you tell a newspaper that you know you think it's possible? It's possible how?
Yeah. It's possible. Let me put it to you this way. You have a homeowners association.
No, we don't.
You had a homeowner situation. Had a homeowners, okay. You had a homeowners association there for many, many years. After a while, you petitioned the town to form a special park district because nobody was paying the dues and to do certain items, certain maintenance items, to look into fixing the lake, which we did, and now you voted to dissolve it. I don't understand how that would just automatically transfer to the general town public. I believe that there's a mechanism there why it would revert back to the previous property owners. And I
was
believe
not
that
part
is
of their
true.
homeowners
Excuse me?
association. I was not part of their homeowners association. So
I
you're
don't
saying
know.
I would not get part of the lake?
I have no idea. You have a deed, correct? You have owned your
I have a
house
deed.
there?
Yep.
Was that a house, when was that lot created?
1940.
Okay, so it's very possible you would have rights to that.
I have rights to the lake, absolutely, but I don't own the lake. The town owns the lake.
We'll have to see.
Well, you see what I'm saying here? You're making statements to the public
Yeah.
that
I fully-
that could be untrue. You might have been mistaken.
No, I don't believe I was mistaken, and we will get back to you on this.
Do you
I
know of
believe-
any example where
Excuse
this has
me?
happened?
Excuse
Do you know
me?
of any example where this has happened?
To
where
me, it's just common sense that.
You can't force.
Let me ask you a question, if
I
you
have one
don't mind.
question,
So
and
how
you
would
can
you,
ask me my
how would you
question.
expect?
I have one more
the
question
town-
about this,
The town
and then
as
you
a
can ask me my
general
question.
entity to take the lake then, if,
I'll
you know,
tell
you
you
don't
how.
think the town?
I'll tell you how, because
How?
you own it, right now.
Yeah,
I sat up here
According
and
to
gave
you.
a 45-minute presentation of using Hillside Lake to bring recreation to the north end of East Fishkill.
yeah.
Number two, which I would hope you would take into consideration when you sit down and review your plan. And there was a number three, but what was your question again?
Now, don't worry about it. I'll let you finish now.
Yeah. Okay, so now, my question back to you is, I believe you were mistaken, because you're saying you're going to possibly do something, but you don't know if it's even possible to do it.
I believe it's possible, yes.
So if I walk out, I might walk out the door and touch the moon tonight. I don't know if it's possible, but.
I don't think that's possible,
try.
but I do believe this is possible.
Yeah. So what I was going to say is that you can't force a community to create a homeowners association.
No?
You cannot force them to create any group of anything that you can give them to.
No?
So why don't you please tell me some facts? I'm giving you facts.
Oh, no, we will get
Why
back
don't
to you
you
on this.
please
I think when we started this little discussion, I said I would get back to you on that. So if you would please allow me the courtesy of getting back to you on this, we'll have a fine discussion on
Why
it in the
didn't you
future.
tell the Poughkeepsie
Excuse
Journal
me?
it's a possibility you'll have to get back to them? Because you threw it out there as fact.
The Poughkeepsie Journal called me and said, what is going to happen with Hillside Lake? I said, in my mind, I said that there could be two options. I could revert back to the homeowners, or it could become a general town property.
Okay.
Correct.
So, right. So I'm asking you, you confidently told the Poughkeepsie Journal it could revert back to the homeowners.
Yes.
How does that take
I
place?
believe that that is a legal possibility, and we will look into
And we
this.
have a town attorney here
Excuse me?
for consulting.
Excuse me? Yes,
yet
I understand
you do
that.
not want to consult him because you do not want to find out the answer in front of the public. So
No, sir,
please,
that is
I'm
not the
asking
reason.
you.
And sir,
I'm
when we
asking you.
started this discussion, I said I would like to get back to you on this, and I understand that you do not wish me that
No,
that
because-
ability to get back to you on it.
No, there's no reason to
There's
get
no
back to me
courtesy here
because-
for you to
because
allow me just to get back to you on this.
I don't need to give
just-
you courtesy. First
I
of
know,
all,
and
'cause
you never do,
I'll tell you
sir.
about courtesy, okay?
Tell me, sir.
Here's some courtesy.
Yes.
Courtesy is you told the Poughkeepsie Journal something that probably cannot happen.
That possibly
logically
can.
and legally. However, you will not give the public the courtesy to ask Mr. Wood how that can be done, because you know for a fact it can't.
You can't be putting words in my mouth, number one. You're telling me what I know and what I don't know. And I believe that it is very possible that could go one way or the other. Now, you may not agree with me, and obviously that's not the issue here. That is a statement I made to Poughkeepsie Journal, and I still feel that there are two options here. It could go to the general town, or it may go back to the homeowners, and that's it. We will discuss this further once I get some more details on the mechanics of this process.
So to clarify, you do not know how it would go back to the homeowners.
I have some ideas how it would go back to the homeowner.
Please share them.
No, I will not share them, sir, because I want to do some fact-checking. I would like to be...
You're admitting you have to do fact-checking. You didn't do your fact-checking
Sir,
before you
sir,
spoke
please,
to the Poughkeepsie
if you
Journal.
would do me a favor,
I'm taking your words and asking you about your words.
All right.
So you just said you have to do fact-checking.
I wanna make
Why
sh-
didn't you do your fact-checking before you stated in the Poughkeepsie Journal?
because
if I
I
go back to
believe
the
this is a
people?
fact, and I believe this is an option, and I'm going to leave it at that, okay?
All right. Well, again, with your words,
That is my
you
word,
believe
sir.
there's a way to do it, so please share.
I have nothing to say more on this subject tonight, all right?
Okay. So we'll get back to the topic at hand of the same thing as far as, I don't know what you called it, but I guess it would be due diligence and being, you're a town supervisor, and would you agree your best interest is in the people of the town, of doing the best for the people of the town of East Fishkill? Is that your primary, I mean, would you say that is primarily
For the town of East Fishkill, yes.
for the people of the taxpayers of the town of East Fishkill that you work for? That's your primary
Mm-hmm. Yes,
goal?
I do work for them, sir.
That's your
Absolutely.
That's your primary thing, I would think, right? As a town
One would
supervisor,
think.
you want to make sure. So the resolution came before you to dissolve the park district and have a vote, okay? I don't recall you ever stating to the public that this might jeopardize our grants.
Excuse me? I made a mention when I had gotten the original request from DASNY.
This was later
At a
on.
workshop.
I'm talking about-
About a week before.
Yeah, I'm talking about March.
I had no idea in March that DASNY was going to send me that letter.
Dasney, what about renewage?
I didn't think it was going to be a problem with that one.
Okay, well.
And, and you know, when I did mention it at that town board meeting, I got emails saying, well, now you're trying to sway the election. So I certainly wanted to be had everybody make their own choice. I
That
did
was
not
after
want
the
to
fact.
sway.
The resolution was already passed to have.
Excuse me?
The resolution was already passed to have the vote and move forward.
Yeah.
That was after the fact.
Oh,
So
yeah.
I'm saying,
Yeah. Hmm?
when it was being discussed by the board, whether the resolution should be passed or not, transparency here.
Yes.
Why wouldn't you have told the people that this, if we do this, it might jeopardize the grant? So understand that when you're voting.
I got
If you are
I
in the
had
best
gotten
interest
the
of-
email from DASNY
not talking
about,
about-
no, excuse me, let me finish. And I did not think it was going to be an impact on the other grant until I discussed it with DEC, after the vote had happened.
I found out today from Stephen Gruber that you told him to put an indefinite hold on the project,
Yeah, to see,
which is supposed to start June 1st, and I believe it was going to be wrapped up in August?
we were hoping mid-October.
Okay. When do you plan on having the dissolution plan wrapped up?
We would like to have that wrapped up as soon as we can, but we have 6 months to do this
Don't you
now.
think-
This project will be
Right?
put off now.
Exactly, I agree. You have
Yeah.
6 months to do that. The filtration plan
Right,
would be done, was slated to be finished before that 6 months.
yes.
So it'll be the same situation, nothing changed in the town's ownership.
Well, I think that's a bit disingenuous to be taking money from a New York State agency and making some kind of a making some kind of a statement that we're going to be responsible for this for the next 5 years. So I think that's disingenuous. I think it's probably illegal.
Not really, because Mr. Wood can correct me if I'm wrong, I believe I heard from him that once a municipality owns land that is a parkland, it has to remain a parkland.
No, that was a little different situation.
That had to do with Lime Kiln Road, Lime Kiln facility.
Well, I mean, there's
Now,
a little
Hillside Lake is a
difference.
parkland.
Recreation.
Tom, would you like to enlighten us upon
I
this?
can
Because
first of all,
this is a
let's,
different subject.
maybe we'll talk about the grants. The grant has a clause in it that you have to notify DEC of any change in circumstances, any issues. So it was conveyed to them about the referendum. As the supervisor said, it's new territory for them. A grant has a provision if at the end, everything isn't, we applied on behalf of the Park District. So now we may not have a Park District. In the end, DEC might say it doesn't matter to them, but it's information you have to give to them, because if you don't and you go ahead with your project and you submit a bill for reimbursement, DEC may say, oh, we're not going to reimburse you now. So that's a disclosure provision, that's an obligation, it's in the DEC contract. Town has a contract with DEC, and that contract contains the disclosure. As the supervisor said, with the DASNY grant, a letter came in, they wanted a certification, we had disclosure, we haven't heard from them yet, we don't know what that is. Should I go into the other issue? Okay. It's not a pipe dream about the conveyance. A homeowners association is a corporation. A corporation is perpetual. They're perpetual. Each deed in the original subdivision of Hillside Lake, it may not be in the deed that you have from the seller to you, but in your chain of title, there is a provision that all property owners within the Hillside Lake development, the original development, have an interest in and membership in the homeowners association, that corporation which owned the lake. It has, in the deed from the original developer to the homeowners association, there's even a trigger that if the property is transferred from the homeowners association, it would revert back to the original development corporation. Additionally, the other issue here in title, as was raised, you effectively blew up the prior town attorney's letter. There's also a town attorney's letter that questions the ability of the conveyance to the town originally because it wasn't by the unanimous consent of all the homeowners. Right. So over the years that we've been dealing with it, my position would be, since the Park District was encompassing the same area as those properties that were members of the original homeowners association, the equity argument in court wouldn't prevent, no one could really challenge the conveyance of that. Now, if you wish to convert this parcel to a parcel that's owned for the benefit of everybody, you now have the possibility and the risk of homeowners in Hillside Lake challenging the original conveyance because of the fact others are benefiting from it outside of the original property owners. So in that regard, it engenders another question: can you take townwide tax money and put it into a property that you probably can't get title insurance on? So these are, I think, issues that are going to take some time to discuss in the dissolution plan to seek. There's no opinion of the state controller, because as I started out this whole process with the community, I had proposed that we go with a plan to the state legislature, that we get approval of them, and we hold the vote. The petition that was filed was under Article 17A of the General Municipal Law, and that disregards a lot of these issues. The state controller hasn't offered one opinion yet on it. I'm in contact with them. I have to formally request their guidance. Quite frankly, they didn't know what to say when I discussed some of the parameters of it. So we have to work through that. So it's not an easy thing, because in the end, if the town did take the lake and wanted to spend money on it, and there was a referendum of the rest of the residents who maybe didn't want to pay that whatever amount it was per home, And if you put the money into the lake and then somebody challenged it, they could set it aside, there are all kinds of issues. So we have to proceed cautiously. But in the legal framework, it is theoretically possible that the lake could go back to the grantor of this deed, the Hillside Lake Homeowners Association, which is a corporate, perpetual corporation in the state of New York.
And who?
Thank you, Tom.
Who operates that?
It's, the burden is for all the homeowners in the original subdivision in the deed to choose offices to operate it. They don't have, you don't have personal liability, but you do have the right to organize and to operate it.
Okay. And on that, provision that's in the original deeds, where it says that it would have to go back to them.
That's in the original developer's deed, yes.
Right. And as well, it says in there that the property could not be sold. That could not be sold without 100% approval of all property owners.
Correct.
Now, you
And
might be
apparently
digging
when the
yourself a
district-
bigger, you might be digging yourself a bigger hole in that the Park District was illegally developed and you collected taxes from a lot of people.
True, but the
And then
equity...
those taxes will
but
have to
the-
go back to all those people.
No, that theory doesn't work, because the equity argument comes into play, and the people for whom those funds were expended are the same people who benefited by the ownership of the property. So that would not be a fact that there would
But
be a
you do agree that
reimbursement.
it's possible the Park District was illegally created?
Yeah, I question why the
possible.
town board back in 1992 disregarded the advice of the town attorney at the
Right.
time and accepted conveyance. But I think it was because there was such pressure from that community at that time to assist the community by forming the Park District that the town board must have balanced that against the advice of council.
Legal is legal, though, so
With legal
Well,
is
that's something to think
questionable.
about.
I don't think it changes the decision of the town board, doesn't change the opinion of the town attorney back then.
Okay. Back to
will take a look.
renewage. You told renewage to indefinitely hold off on the project.
Yeah,
The project is not a project for the Hillside Lake Park District. It's a project for the town's stormwater conveyance system.
located on...
town's project. It's-
Located on property owned by the Hillside Lake property owners,
Owned by the town.
on behalf of, but yes.
So I don't I don't know.
I know
the
you
plan-
don't-
I don't know what's in the grant, the words and all of that, but I just wanted to make sure
Yeah.
that we're clear. This is a project for town stormwater. It's not a project for improving a lake. It's for
Well,
filtering
part
your
of it was, and I
stormwater.
know
It's
that,
not to improve the lake.
Oh, no, part of it was.
It's to filter your, part of it,
You
but
were-
we
you
can
were-
do away with that.
you were at the
Yeah, we could
meetings.
do away with the air filters because they
Oh,
were.
you didn't want to, okay, you didn't want to do that.
My preference would be to
Okay.
do away with them.
Okay, that's
I
fine.
certainly
If
don't
you
wanna
can
pay for
speak, that's fine.
I can, for myself, yeah.
Sure.
But the rest of it is to filter your
Oh, yeah.
stormwater before
Yeah,
it
but
goes
it's
into
it's
the lake.
the
So it's not improving
ownership of
lake.
the property.
So, okay, so what are you saying?
I'm saying that DEC would like to see who's going to end up owning the property because they will not expend funds to be used on property who they don't know is going to own it. Yes, it's a stormwater project, it's the ownership of the property upon which it's located.
It really would have been nice had you, maybe in your supervisor's announcements, made that announcement that that grant was put indefinitely on hold for that reason.
I'm waiting
I
to
don't-
hear from DEC. This is,
You told
this is
Stephen-
new,
you-
this is new
Stephen
territory.
Gruber sent an email saying that you called him and told him
We have to hold off and see what's going to
definitely on
happen.
hold.
Well, I didn't send Stephen Gruber an email saying it's
Somehow he
indefinitely.
heard from you
Yeah.
that.
Yeah,
put it
no.
indefinitely
I
on
mean,
hold.
doesn't it make sense to you that we have to put things on hold because
Yeah, but
of
I'm
this?
saying you should
Thank you.
notify the community of these things.
Excuse me?
You should notify the community.
I'm waiting to get some clarification from DEC on where we're going to go.
Again, transparency.
I mean, I just
is a
spoke with
great
them
thing.
today, and she said, I'll get back to you on this. Again, I know you don't want to hear it, but this is uncharted territory for them also.
And
May-
I
may I-
believe
may I,
it was requested in the petition to please keep us informed of any developments and all.
May I
and everything.
please-
We're waiting to see what's going to happen with this.
May I please interject 1 second? I mean, before tonight, before this discussion started, I was not aware that we had stopped the project going forward.
I only came
Was
up
there the rest
came
of
up
the board-
yesterday morning, and I spoke to DEC again
Was the rest of the board
today.
notified?
No, it just came up. I talked to her yesterday, and I spoke to her again today.
But Stephen Gruber is the design engineer.
No, I understand.
But you didn't award the bid yet
I
for the project,
understand.
so.
I
The
understand.
board was
Stop
not
the
notified.
This is a
It's just-
project that we bid it out already.
Understood, Manny. No, the board was not notified. I just got notified yesterday morning. I contacted her again today to try to set up a meeting with their attorney. I don't want to say it's canceled. I'd like to see if we can work this out, and we're just waiting to see what DEC has to say.
And the other thing that I'm really shocked, that I'm the liaison to this El Saleh community, and I have to find out now, tonight, at this meeting. I mean, again, I was in your office yesterday, and not a word was said about this. I'm a little disappointed of,
You were in before I spoke with them. I don't think I spoke with her till after that. You were in
it's not
earlier.
important to notify me, I guess,
Well, I would
of such
say,
an important issue.
Understood.
That we want to stop a project because of their circumstances. I understand, you know, in the past, and with all due respect, you have said to me, stop by and talk to me. Yesterday, I spent some time in the building, and no one said a word to me. I mean, this is...
I'm sorry, who did you spend time with?
Well, I spent some time with the lawyer, I went to see the controller.
I saw you
I
for
was
about
in your
3
office.
minutes, so when you're on your way out, you
I was in
stopped
your
in.
office, we had a meeting yesterday. We had an
I didn't-
appointment,
You met with the attorney for about a half hour. You
and I had a
stopped in to
meeting,
see me about
with
3
all due
minutes
respect, John,
afterwards, yeah.
that
And I
there
hadn't
is an
spoken-
email,
Yeah.
there is an email that your secretary put out where I had supposed to have a meeting with you at 11:30 yesterday. So I am really shocked that in the past, on a public meeting, I was reprimanded in public that I don't come and see, and now tonight, again, I am the liaison to this community. I'm the person that's supposed to communicate with them about a project that we worked so hard on. And now, after a vote was taken, we stopped on a project, and I'm finding out this tonight. I mean,
We're not
where
stopping it.
where is the transparency of this administration?
We are not stopping it. I'm waiting for DEC to clarify
You just
it.
said the word stopped.
We have to hold off until DEC gets back to us and says to us if this can proceed.
John, I'm
I
sorry.
didn't
I'm
explain it. I
sorry.
should have called the board
I am sorry.
afterwards. Understood.
The procedure that you established for us to operate as a board, cohesive board, and I'm sorry I have to apologize to the community if at times I have to behave the way I behave is because of the situation that we create, and it's not done by me. Okay? I am apologizing to the whole community of East Fishkill, but this is what's been going on for the longest time. I was in a building yesterday, and I'm finding out this tonight on a conversation between a constituent and a town supervisor. This is very disrespectful, to say the least. It's disrespectful to the elected official, and it's disrespectful to the community. And again, I apologize to the whole town of East Fishkill if I have to interject like this.
Understood.
I feel tonight I would just get up and leave the room, because this is disrespectful.
I would like to get some more information from DEC before I say where we stand with it, understanding how you feel, Councilman.
It's very
Understood.
disrespectful, John. I'm sorry if I have to say this in public to
Oh,
you.
that's fine,
But
understood.
you're stepping all over me, and you're stepping all over this community. I am sorry
I
if I
am
have to
not
say
stepping
this.
all over the community. The community filed a petition, as is their right. They took a vote, as is their right.
I said what I had to say. Now you
Excuse me,
continue your,
Councilman, I will finish. If
Continue
you-
your conversation, I'm sorry.
If I may,
Go ahead.
I looked through the contract, and it said that for certain situations, significant occurrences, they need to be notified. I notified them. They called me yesterday after you had left, I believe, and she said, "We're really not sure what to do with this. We have to talk with my boss." She spoke with her boss. Again, this is uncharted territory. I could tell people that the project is off. I don't want to do that. I'm hopeful that DEC is still going to see it through. I don't want to be a fear monger and saying, "Oh, the vote killed the project." I don't want to be on the other side and giving everybody false hope, but I'd like to get some more information from DEC. And when I announced that DASNY had sent me an email that there was a problem, that they needed a letter saying that the town owned the property, I was then taken to task by a member of Hillside Lake. "How could you do this? You're trying to sway the vote." I didn't want to be involved with the vote. I just like to see this thing through, and I have to wait for more guidance from DEC. That's all I can say. When I get some guidance from DEC, I will be happy to share it.
One additional comment I want to make for the record. I was named liaison of the Hillside Lake community by the town supervisor when I first got elected. I've duly done the proper job for this community. Had I been put in a different department, I would have just done as decent a job. I spent many hours in meetings trying to do the right thing for this community. They are part of the town of East Fishkill. I just feel very frustrated right now that the town supervisor, if this gentleman didn't bring this up, I wouldn't found out anything about this. I would have left this room, and when constituents would have come up and asked me, how's the project? It's starting next month. That, to me, is perplexing.
Thank you.
And I apologize to the town of East Fishkill again, if at times this situation I created, it's not by my desire.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Yes, you mentioned that you looked through the grant and found that line in there that you had to be.
It's called significant occurrence.
Right. When did you find that out?
The other day.
Okay, because we submitted the petition in January. So, you knew since January.
I was going
this
through.
was coming.
Excuse me?
This was coming, you just overlooked it, or you knew since January that this vote was...
No, I understand that. I just sent them an email saying that this is a significant occurrence, just to let them know.
Okay. So you overlooked it.
I saw it last week, and I sent them the email.
Okay. One more question. This seems like a prime opportunity that if the Newich project is not going to start on June 1st, then surely you can go in there and take your 20,000 tons or whatever it is of sediment that Scott came up with, that you claim is, that you agreed was put in there by your stormwater conveyance system. You can start taking that out in the meantime. This is the perfect time to do it. You're
We
waiting
have
for
to
an
get a
answer.
permit, we'll have
Looking
to.
into the permitting
Yeah.
requirements for that, 60 ton. We're looking into the permitting
60
requirements.
tons is what it is?
Yeah.
And what, I mean, we knew we had to do this too, so
Yeah,
why are we just now looking into the
because we
permitting
were busy
requirements?
with the other things.
What are the permitting, what do you think the permitting requirements
Don't know.
are to go in there and just dig out
Working on
some
it down,
sediment?
we're working on it downstairs to see what permitting, if any, is going to be required.
Okay, hopefully you will be transparent and keep us informed of that. And I would think you would agree it makes sense that if we're not doing the other project, it's a fine time to jump in there and do that,
Absolutely.
because you
That's
need
why
to
we
do
were
that
talking
anyway. You
about
don't
it.
need a grant for that. You already agreed that
That's why we were talking about it.
responsible thing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Regarding time frame, when you became aware of it, there was an email exchange between a resident and Stephen Gruber on Tuesday, May 23rd. So that precedes yesterday and precedes Councilman Marinello's visit to the town hall and spoke with you yesterday also. Regarding the renewage grant, as Michael had indicated, that is to treat town stormwater. That is not to do anything as far as treating the lake itself. I personally, I believe it was at the July 6th meeting of 2016, I objected to the aerators. However, it was insisted upon by you folk that do the negotiations with renewage, and I had reason to believe that that was a foot in the door to get Hillside Lake to start paying for a portion of this system, that being at very least the electric that would be utilized in order to power the filtration. And I very adamantly had indicated that putting those filters and those aerators in on the north side of the lake was not treating the problem, it was treating the symptom. The problem is the town stormwater coming into Hillside Lake and has exacerbated an existing problem. So I'll reiterate that this is a 303D impaired water body. Town of East Fishkill is an automatically regulated township for MS4. And so I would think, regardless of who the ownership is at the end of the end of the month, end of the year, whenever this is going to go on to, that you would be more encouraging to DEC to go ahead with this grant. And then as far as the $128,000 DASNY grant, I would dearly like to know what, in fact, you sent to them as far as ownership. I mean, why don't you make that public knowledge?
No problem. I think you actually foiled for it.
I sure did.
Yeah, so you'll be getting a copy.
Okay, well,
It's
if
just
you
a
already
simple
know what it
letter.
is, it shouldn't take the 20 business days to
It's
get to
just
me
a-
then.
it's just a
If it's
simple
that
letter.
voluntarily offered, then I guess I should get it tomorrow.
Okay. And back to the other thing, I know you keep saying it's the stormwater again. We're listed on the 303D list by DEC. I believe phosphorus was the pollutant, and the suspected source was the on-site wastewater treatments, which is septics. So you
Yeah,
keep
well,
saying
no,
this.
actually, you obviously didn't listen to my
No, I
dissertation
did
earlier this
before,
evening.
but I'm just going by what the 303D list has it stated, so.
And I explained to you that on the
Phosphorus
on the
happens.
2008 priority waters list, which is still
Yes.
in existence, it's
Yeah.
a running list.
Yeah, no, I was here.
Included on that is urban stormwater runoff.
And there's on many other columns in that one, they say that, but also it does say.
You want to keep
it
on
does
going
say
to
septic.
on-site septic systems, and
I
you have
understand
failed
you
to
don't, I
prove
understand
that.
you don't
have
think that
failed
that's a.
to prove it.
I understand you don't believe that that's a participant
I
in the
didn't-
degradation of the
I-
lake.
I conceded to it maybe in part earlier
Sounds
today.
like, so, okay.
Thank you.
Could I just add, though, not to dispute, but we did the Bacteroid test a couple of years ago. I think you have that full
Please,
report.
Could you repeat?
I'm sorry. If you recall, we did that Bacteroid test a couple of years ago at the catch basins, and it's really a seasonal issue. But we had gone, we had done the map. I think you're well familiar with that.
On 2 winters, or 2 springs, I guess, probably more
Right,
accurate.
and we chose that test specifically because it differentiates between human waste and animal waste. And some basins had animal waste, obviously, and then I think, I'm not sure the exact location, it's been a couple of years, but we identified on that map where the human waste had been identified. And then we had gone back, retested, and it came back negative. So it appears as like a seasonal issue. I don't know when the tests were done from the DEC, when they did their dye test, but it appears it could be a seasonal issue, just like when you
could
go
be.
out in the spring.
Well, sir, you make my point for me.
Not so
The
bad this
stormwater
spring.
conveyance system belongs to the town, and if it's getting in there via the stormwater
Not
conveyance system,
necessarily, it could also be underground intrusion.
Well, I
mean, it's
think
not
that's what
necessary
David-
which way
it's
it's
still
going.
conveyed into the lake via your catch basins and your pipes.
And I would just.
As well as under.
Excuse me, Scott, if I may, David, the engineer for Renewage.
Right.
I can't think of his last name, but he made a very good point. When you have septic systems that are that deep and your water table is that high,
Right.
at some point they may commingle, and you won't have a discharge, you won't have an illicit discharge that can be traced. It could be just simply through the water
But
table.
anyway, my point is to whether or not it was proved that there was human in there, and was proved. I mean, we had the Bacteroid results, and I think you had copies of that.
Conveyed via the town
I'm not
stormwater
disputing
system.
or
Okay.
arguing how it's conveyed, but the question is there failing septics? I mean, I think the
There
results
there
speak
may
for
be,
themselves.
there may be, but I read you earlier this evening the 1988 reports saying that there was no coliform in the lake. So
And
that
again,
means
I
after,
believe it-
excuse me, after it became under the custodianship of the town, obviously is when that had arisen.
But not necessarily, because as I said, when we test, we find it varies seasonally. You could go today or February and get hits. You could go back in June, not get hits. So I don't know what time of year that test was done, but if they only went there and did it once, they could get a negative. They could go back
Point taken.
3 times and maybe hit a positive and 2 who knows? But our experience has been, it's not consistent.
Okay, point taken. However, if it happens at the same time every year, then I would expect you pursue where it is coming from, because it is going into Hillside Lake, and the contention is that, well, it's a theory. I mean, I respect Dave from Renewage, or the engineering firm, that he is in fact an engineer. I respect that as a fact, but it's a theory. It hasn't been proven. It has been factual that coliform was found in stormwater basins. That's a fact. And I also told you how phosphorus also naturally
You gave
occurs.
us quite a lesson on that one.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Any other comments on general town issues? There being none, Any comments from the town board? There being none, do I have a motion to adjourn?
Just 1 second.
Memorial Day thing.
I just want to congratulate and I want to thank all the past veterans that they have served to make this country great, and all the military that are currently serving overseas to protect us and give us the freedom that we have today. Thank you, everybody.
And just a reminder, the Memorial Day ceremony will be at the corner of Beekman Road and 82, May 29th, 11 a.m. Start time,
Monday.
May 29th, 11 a.m., Monday.
Thank you. Any other comments from the board? Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried.